Hey everyone, and welcome back to Homecrafted Cocktails. Classics Reimagined is all about exploring ways we can get creative with cocktails that are already well known and have been enjoyed for years. Today we're taking on the Negroni and 4 incredible variations. Each one is reminiscent of the original, but makes some key additions or substitutions that change the flavor completely and take the cocktail in a new direction. So let's get started. Okay, so naturally, we're starting with the classic. The Negroni is a cocktail that's stirred, not shaken, so we'll trade our cocktail shaker out for a mixing glass and a bar spoon. And we'll start by adding ice to the glass. Campari is an Italian bitter liqueur known for its deep red color. We'll use 1 ounce of Campari. To the Campari, add 1 ounce of gin. Typically, Negronis are made with a London dry gin. Tanqueray, which I tend to always use, happens to be one of those, but you could use any gin you like. The final component is 1 ounce of Sweet Vermouth. So we'll get that added to the glass, and that's it. It's really a simple recipe. You really can't forget it. Stir this for about 10 seconds or 20 revolutions. Stirring does 3 things. It mixes the ingredients, it chills the drink, and it dilutes the drink as well. How long you stir depends on your preference for how cold you want the final cocktail to be and how much dilution you want to achieve from the melting ice. Your approach to stirring could depend on whether you plan to serve the cocktail on the rocks or up. To my glass, I've added a single ice cube. Strain the drink over the ice and into the glass. The standard garnish for a Negroni is an orange peel. So using a citrus peeler, I'm going to make about a 3-inch long piece of orange zest. I give it a squeeze to express some of those orange oils into the drink, and then I'll drop this into the glass. Alright, so with the classic done, let's move on to our first variation. The Negroni Sbagliato is bright and bubbly, thanks to sparkling wine. We'll build this one right in the glass. As with the original recipe, start with ice, and then add 1 ounce of Campari. To the Campari, we'll add 1 ounce of Sweet Vermouth. And for this cocktail, instead of gin, we're going with sparkling wine. I'm using an Italian Prosecco. Side note, these tiny little bottles of Prosecco are perfect to have around the house for making cocktails. Add the Prosecco slowly and let the bubbles subside. Because of the sparkling wine, we want to stir this one pretty gently, just enough to combine the ingredients so that we don't lose any of those bubbles. As with the original, we'll garnish this with orange peel. Okay, so we've got 2 down, 3 to go, and our second variation is the Boulevardier. The Boulevardier is a darker and richer spin on the Negroni where bourbon is subbed in for gin. Again, we'll start with a mixing glass and ice. Add 1.5 ounces of bourbon. My favorite would be Woodford Reserve, but you can of course use any bourbon you like. To that, add Campari, just 3/4 of an ounce this time. This cocktail cuts down on the ratio of the Campari and the Sweet Vermouth to really bring the bourbon front and center. It's a much stronger cocktail. 3/4 of an ounce of Sweet Vermouth is the final ingredient here. So grab your bar spoon and give this one another stir for about 20 seconds. Then we'll strain this into the glass over ice, and of course I went back to the big ice cube because of the bourbon, it just seemed appropriate. And yeah, you guessed it, we'll garnish this one with an orange peel too. There's a theme here, we gotta stick to it. Okay, now we'll start to drift a little further from the original recipe. Our next drink is the Contessa. For this one, we're swapping Campari out for Aperol, Campari's milder cousin. 1 ounce of Aperol goes into the mixing glass. And instead of sweet vermouth, this one calls for dry vermouth. Dry vermouth is obviously not as sweet as sweet vermouth, and the botanicals used are lighter and more herbaceous. 1 ounce of dry vermouth, and then 1 ounce of gin. I'm using Tanqueray again, but of course, you know the deal, you can use your favorite gin. Then we'll add ice and stir. If you're a fan of martinis, you probably know that gin and dry vermouth go incredibly well together. We'll add fresh ice to the glass, and then strain the cocktail over the ice into the glass. And I've got one trick up my sleeve here that's really going to throw you off. This time, we're going to garnish the drink with a lemon peel instead of an orange peel. I know, we're getting kind of carried away. And don't worry if you can't peel the lemon right into the glass like that. Give it a squeeze to get some of those oils out, and we're just about done. Great, so for the final variation, we're going in the dessert direction and doing a chocolate Negroni. This one starts out with 1 ounce of gin, followed by 3/4 of an ounce of Campari, and 3/4 of an ounce of sweet vermouth. We've built a classic Negroni to this point, but just like the Boulevardier, we've cut down on the Campari and sweet vermouth. And that's because we needed to make room for creme de cacao, a chocolate liqueur that will give us a deep chocolate flavor. 1/2 ounce of creme de cacao goes into the glass. And one last ingredient, chocolate bitters, which I seem to have just run out of. I've got this mini one from a sampler set which I'm using. These smaller bottles put out quite a bit less, so this is probably 2 to 3 dashes from a normal size bottle. We've already got our ice in there, so we'll stir this one up. For this last cocktail, I've decided to serve it up without ice, so we'll strain this directly into a coupe glass. We'll garnish with orange peel because chocolate and orange go great together, and because at this point, why not? So we'll add the finishing touch to our final Negroni, and that's it. Now it's time to taste. Okay, so we've got 5 different drinks. We've got to try them all. Let's see how it goes. So starting with the classic, this one is obviously the original. Just as a reminder, this is the one with Campari, sweet vermouth, and gin. You really get the bitter notes and the orange. I really like this one. Obviously, so do a lot of other people in the world. I think it's delicious. So that one's great. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. This is the Negroni Sbagliato. The Prosecco really helps lighten this one up. So without the gin, it's a lot lighter. You don't get as much of the botanical or the alcohol that you would with the gin. But with the Campari and the vermouth, it's still a delicious drink. I really like that. So the Boulevardier, a variation with bourbon and a little bit less of the Campari and the sweet vermouth. I think the other components really help mellow out the bourbon, which is really nice. I love this Woodford bourbon, so anything with it is great. This is definitely a different profile than the others. Definitely something a little darker and woodsier, but I like this a lot. All right, moving on to the Contessa. This one is where we subbed out the Campari for Aperol, and we use dry vermouth instead of sweet. So this is a lot less sugary. You're not gonna get the rosemary notes that I get out of that sweet vermouth. Let's give this a try. I mean, it smells completely different. Wow. So this one absolutely is completely different. I love the lemon with this. It really brightens it up. The dry vermouth completely takes it in a different direction, which I really like. And the Aperol is less bitter. So this kind of all ties together really well in a completely different direction that's equally delicious. All right, and last but not least, the chocolate Negroni. I have a feeling I know someone else in this household who's gonna love this one. Wow, you can really taste the chocolate in this one. The addition of the creme de cacao and those chocolate bitters, it pairs really nicely with the orange, a little bit of the oil from the orange twist, as well as the bitterness of the Campari. This one's a little sweeter, but it's absolutely incredible. All right, so we did 5 different Negronis, the original, 4 variations, all completely different, but all absolutely delicious. I hope this inspires you to get out there and try something new. Take something that's a classic and just see what you can change or come up with, or check out what others have done as well. There's endless possibilities, and as you've seen today, all of these are absolutely incredible and really delicious. Okay, so everything you need to make any or all of these cocktails is down in the description below. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.